Preseason football is here, and obviously one of the predominant questions as teams prepare, what's their schedule going to be for those 3 preseason games? You're obviously asking, what are the stars going to do? And then how much are you going to have the second, third, and fourth stringers out there in the second, third, and fourth quarters, or maybe even earlier than that? And I'm not saying that Andy Reid's pulling the strings of who's on this show. I am going to tell you, Nate's not here today. So if that's any indication, it's scrub time. It's scrub time is also what I insist on shouting every time I get into the shower every day. Renee hates it. The dogs hate it. I can't help it. It's scrub time. It's Only Weird Games. Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor with you here as we are getting really close to semi-real football. More real than training camp, which was more real than training camp before the pads came on, which was a little more real than off-season activities. I know that we've got a very large sliding scale for when real football is happening, because depending on who you are, sometimes that doesn't come around till the holiday season. But we're going to watch the Chiefs take the field against a different football team that is not using the same calls in practice every day, that you've not picked up on every intricacy of over a couple of weeks in St. Joseph, Missouri. And Seth, I am genuinely excited to have, air quotes, real football coming back on Saturday.
Every year, it's the same story. You get really excited that preseason is here because for the first time in months, 6 of them to be precise-ish, we will have new plays by the Kansas City Chiefs to watch. And it's always exciting. It's always so, there's so much buildup to it. The NFL has learned to do such a great job with training camp coverage. And that's the thing. I understand, Major League Baseball, they talk about spring training. My understanding is the NBA does talk about summer league. But, no other sport is hey, guys, they're practicing. It is an incredible thing that the NFL has managed to do, and football is an incredible sport. And so we get so ramped up because you OTAs are more real than nothing. That's fair. Mm-hmm. And then mandatory OTAs. I'm sorry, I almost skipped one. I don't know what my problem.
Please
is.
Don't do that. That's when the fines get coming in.
Yeah, those are more real than regular OTAs. And then the beginning of training camp is more real than mandatory OTAs. And then when the pads come on, like you said, it just gets more and more and more real. And preseason game 1 is the next step. And I'm so excited to be so excited for 4 drives, and then I'm gonna be I think I'm good.
Right, yeah, that's the circle of life. That's what happens.
Yeah, and that's how it ends. But there's gonna be new film to review. I don't know if I'm gonna have all 22 for preseason this year. We'll see. The last couple of years I have. This year I may not. But it is just so much fun being able to watch players that you've been talking about for a while actually take the field, like you said, against someone else. And so it's a privilege. And during the game itself, I end up bored, especially with the first preseason game, usually by halftime. And I'm just
maybe I'll watch Bailey Zappi in a while, baby.
Well, and that's just it. Because so many things in terms of actually looking at the entire product on the field, because you've got the mixture of 2s and 3s and some 4s out there. It's kind of a mess. And it becomes really obvious what team has
Let it out, man. I think talking about the third quarter of the preseason game with a big yawn, I think is actually the attitude you do want to bring.
Yeah. Now I've just learned to suppress, everything. And so, I mean, you can't learn a lot about the team. So it's actually much more exciting to me once the game is over to go back. I'm undoubtedly going to be writing about Josh Simmons unless the first team only plays I made a decision, 4 or fewer snaps.
I was going to say 3. I mean, 3 is the floor probably, right? I guess won't come out and just throw a pick and get yanked. But I think If they go 3 and out but get 7, let me set the stage here for you, Seth. I'll
Okay.
tell you what Andy Reid said to all of us today, and I'll
Yeah.
provide some context. Andy Reid said today that each quarterback will get a quarter. You've got Mahomes, Gardner Minshew, Bailey Zappi, Chris Oladokun. That was the order Reid laid him out in, and then the 1s through 4s will follow those quarterbacks in suit. That's also what he said last year. Patrick Mahomes played 1 drive. I think that's also what he said the year before. Patrick Mahomes played 1 drive. Sometimes you'll see the first team offensive line. I think usually you'll see the first team offensive line stay out there for a drive with a backup quarterback, because if Gardner Minshew is going into the game at some point, early in the season especially, you want him to have a little bit of experience with that O-line and vice versa. So that all makes perfect sense. And Patrick Mahomes said today, he wants to get hit once. Once he's been hit once, I think he's probably ready to hit the sim to season button, and I would certainly understand that. But that's the stated plan from Andy Reid. The real plan is that the starters, Mahomes will certainly not play a quarter. I think you want 1 successful drive or 2 unsuccessful drives, if recent history is any indicator. And no practice today for Hollywood Brown or Rashee Rice. Brenningstool either, who I mentioned just because he'd be a guy you'd want to see later in a first preseason game, and he's
Right.
been sidelined. But Kristian, Fulton, and Tranquill both returned to do some individual work today. Certainly don't expect to see either of them play on Saturday as things currently stand. That's not official. That's just a guess. But they got out there for some individual work. That's a big deal to get Fulton and Tranquill back in the mix. Before we get to the actual things we're looking forward to on Saturday, Seth, it just has been a while that we've been going, oh man, I hope we see Kristian Fulton soon. And we were all a little bit nervous about just Tranquill, parentheses, back, because that could be anything. But positive steps for both of those former Chargers today.
Yeah, maybe they managed to overcome the curse, which is real. I'm sorry. I'm a man of faith, but I've decided in this one particular instance, curses are real and the Chargers are cursed. There's no other explanation.
I think the best curse is that Kristian Fulton's like a top 5 corner in the league this year. That's the real curse of the Chargers.
No, that would be a great curse. Maybe like their team doctor is a doctor, like Dr. Pepper is a doctor or something.
Ooh,
but like
yeah.
they just
you know who it would be.
Dr.
For the Chargers, it'd be Dr. Thunder.
Dr. Thunder. That's easy miss on my part. That's on me.
Okay.
I've always thought that
Seth, I know this is going to come as a shock to you. This podcast is not a competition. This is a collaboration, you and me, and sometimes Nate.
Everything's a competition. I mean,
well, that's it. That's up to you.
But so I'm glad to see Fulton back. It's the same thing that we've talked about previously. They don't have 4 corners that they trust. They have 3. And they want to trust Najee Johnson. We'll see. I thought it was really interesting hearing him talk about how tough last year was in terms of coming back mentally from a torn ACL, how he trusts the knee more now. He's feeling better. And last year he was just trying not to make a mistake. All of those are really interesting things. Merritt and Spags have faith in him. Seems like he's the 4th guy up. But you really don't want him on the field that often until he shows something different than what he showed last year. Fulton was the answer to that. Fulton and Watson are supposed to be your boundary guys with Trent McDuffie sliding inside, best slot defender in the league. That's the plan. And seeing Fulton back at this point, I think I'd said I was going to worry like maybe next week is when it would like really worry. Seeing him back doing some individual stuff, I'm like, okay. So this is like a veteran saying, okay, I got to do some stuff here. He's been around for a while, so we'll see how it goes. I'm really happy to see him back. And again, there's a domino effect here. That's one reason why he's such an important signing is you get a domino effect with corners just as much as you do with like receivers. Because when you add one to the top 2, it bumps everyone down a notch and puts you in a position to where suddenly you're not being asked to do more than you can. So you can see improvement, not just at cornerback 2 or cornerback 3, but cornerback 4. So I'm excited to see that. I'm glad he's back. I hope Drew Tranquill's okay. Back issues are always scary. I think you said this on Tuesday. You never had back problems. That's usually not how it goes. So we'll see. I'm glad to see them back. I don't expect them to play either. That would surprise me. Sounds like they're just being cautious with Rashee Rice based on what they're saying. I mean, that's literally what they said.
Yep.
He's got a groin. That's always one of my favorite things. And he's got a groin. It's like, yes. Also, is he hurt? Like,
Right.
these are and this, I feel like
He
there's
should
some real
have two
missed
of them.
opportunities. Yeah. So we're not gonna see anything schemy. We're not gonna see anything, you know, we're not going to see anything fancy. Usage is something you can kind of look at in preseason games, but not really. Like everyone's like, I want to see Brashard Smith's role in the screen game. Let me tell you something, brother.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to happen. I mean,
remember when we talk every year in, let's see, September, October, early November. You remember every year in early November when we talk about Andy Reid maybe holding back some of, quote, the good plays? Yeah. You're definitely not seeing them in the first week of August.
You might gonna happen. I'd love to see them work on the screen game because it hasn't been as effective lately. That's partly because teams are like, we fear nothing 10 yards more and more down the field. And it's a lot easier to cover screens when you're only stretched horizontally. But I would love to see them dial up a few screens to Smith just to let the new guys on the offensive line kind of work through that. And so I'd love to see it, but you're not going to see anything new. Like, it'll be a screen that they've put on film 70 times if you see something like that. So it'll be really exciting. It's the individuals I'm excited to watch more so than the team.
I think that's a great way of looking at it and a great way of setting up something you wrote about in the Chief of the North newsletter. We're going to talk about a handful of the players and the particulars that you mentioned there, but you already kind of started us into this next phase. But in terms of like, hey, if you're going to try to give a little primer on how you should watch preseason football, watching individuals and not the team feels like a great starting spot. Anything that's schemed up is not necessarily reflective of a player's spot in the rotation or in the NFL. You've mentioned, if there's a blown coverage, picking a player who I do want to believe in quite badly, but if there's a blown coverage that allows Tyquan Thornton to have a 75-yard touchdown, if it's not something that Tyquan Thornton did, if it's that his, the corner in front of him fell down and the safety's head was looking the other direction and he just walked to the end zone, that's more about the corner and safety than it is about the wide receiver and quarterback. So with all of that in mind, what are some other things that you think are important to either be keeping an eye on in the preseason or weirdly not be keeping too close of an eye on in the preseason?
So the thing that you just said, the way that I would frame that is you look for player traits rather than play results. Like people still talk about the Bobby Scipio preseason fanfare because he caught a couple of touchdowns. But like if you watch those touchdowns, like bro's standing there by himself in the end zone,
created separation.
That doesn't really show you much.
Oh.
And so, like, don't look for play results. Like, so let's say, for example, Brashard Smith has an 80-yard touchdown because the backup offensive line just bulldozes, the backup
third team defensive line. Yeah.
Yeah. And the linebacker hits the wrong gap and there's just no one there because it's a zero blitz or something. It's like, yes, he's fast. We knew that. Like, that doesn't really. Sorry, I dropped a nail clipper off my desk.
Well, I appreciate you having the the fortitude to not be clipping your nails during the show. That I just appreciate that.
Well, that was just more it hadn't occurred to me, but we'll get there. So, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, look at traits rather than result, and specifically, and this is something I talk about over and over again. You're watching individual players more so than team results. Watch one-on-one battles wherever they can exist, especially in the trenches, maybe some man coverage looks, and then pay attention to when that's happening in the game and who it's happening against. There's nothing wrong with dominating a second or third or even fourth string guy. That's not like a reason to totally discard it. Let's say Ashton Gelati gets 4 sacks in the fourth quarter. You don't discard it entirely, but you do ask how they happened, right? Like, did they happen because someone else got it or whatever? But you also just ask yourself, well, I mean, who are they playing? Dominating fourth stringers is a lot better than playing them even, but you got to keep that take that into consideration. It's just taking a look at traits and taking a look at, especially with young guys, the rookies. I think I named every rookie in the rookie class except Noel Williams as one of the who. So, I wrote about who I'm watching and what I'm watching for with each of them. I really did every rookie except Noel Williams, and that's partly because I'm not sure I'm going to have all 22 in his case. And there's really not any buzz that he's going to be like higher than 5th on the depth chart. So I'm curious about what next year looks like for him. Maybe he develops as the year goes along. But, I mean, those are things to watch. But with rookies, traits. Do the traits that they've showed in college translate to the NFL? The story I told on Tuesday was, the first snap Chris Jones took as a pro was a preseason game against some second string dude. And he just grabbed the guy and kind of threw him to the side a bit, the way we've seen him now do 20 million times. That's showing, the way Chris Jones won in college, had really, really freakishly heavy hands, tons of power, and more explosion than he should. He's actually a more explosive player now, like 30, than he was then, which is crazy to me. But you see that it translates. So look for that with Simmons. Does he show the foot speed to get comfortably to the edge and arrive with power? With Jalen Royals, that first 10-yard burst, is that showing up against the pros? That comfort through contact on when he's running routes, does that show up in the pros? Because some of the ways these guys won in college, that's the reason not every good college player, everyone who gets drafted was a good to incredibly good college player for the most part. You are just looking to see, does it translate? That's the best you can do. And so that's what I'm really looking for, especially with the rookies.
Total left turn out of the Chiefs realm here. You may have heard me just like grimace into the microphone a second ago. Adam Schefter just tweeted, Chargers offensive tackle Rashawn Slater, who signed a 4-year, $113 million extension last month and then was carted off the practice field today, suffered a season-ending ruptured patella tendon pending further testing per sources. Pending further testing might carry something there. Another one here.
Well, now the
Schefter,
Chargers are tweeting out that he sustained a torn patellar tendon and will undergo surgery. That sucks, man. Slater's so good.
A devastating injury for the Chargers, obviously. A devastating injury for Slater. Also, I couldn't read that and not immediately think about Josh Simmons. Obviously, we're talking about, I assume effectively the same thing. Maybe there's some intricacies that I'm too far out of over my skis on in terms of patellar tendon things. But as I was just like double checking all of that, this kind of also just interesting. It's an NFL.com story from March 2nd. Combine news. Josh Simmons, who's coming back from a torn patellar tendon, is believed to be ahead of schedule in his recovery, and the expectation is he'll be ready for the start of the 2025 season, NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport reported. Rappaport noted that Simmons' medical reviews during the combine have gone very well. Simmons is ranked number 31 in Daniel Jeremiah's prospect rankings. That reads crazy 5 months removed from that story. Because also, I don't feel like that didn't make enough of a boom on March 2nd for the level of news that it was for the rest of the league. That's kind of interesting.
I've thought about that a lot, honestly. I assumed when that news came out, and I believe we talked about it here on Only Weird Games, that we assumed with how good the news was from the medicals at the combine, that the odds of him slipping to within the Chiefs' grasp was just nil.
Yeah.
I can't believe it happened, but that stinks because Slater, interestingly enough, him and Christian Darrisaw are two of the comps people like to make for Simmons in terms of their combination, like kind of the way they win in terms of being really good athletes that also have really heavy hands, which I know sounds like you're describing like every single tackle, but there's more to it than that. But those are the comps you see a lot. And that's kind of encouraging because both of them, Darrisaw was solid in year one, and Slater is kind of, I'm always talking about how tackles are never really good year one. Slater was kind of an exception to that. He was, I believe, a Pro Bowler and I think a second team All-Pro as a rookie, which like never happens. And so that's that's just an interesting kind of connected thought, at least in my brain, which does not mean it's connected for anyone else, but it's just at least interesting to think about. That's a real bummer for him. I personally love seeing good teams play each other. And so it's always a bummer, even if it does make the Chiefs' road a little bit easier. And seriously, the Chargers, man, they just like.
You said that thing about the Chargers being cursed 10 minutes before that news came out. I mean,
Yeah,
we knew Slater had been hurt, but I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about him getting carded today.
I honestly assumed, after just hearing that he got carted out, I assumed it was season ending because it's the Chargers. And that just really stinks. Excellent player, and their offensive line has some questions on the interior as it is. And so my assumption is they'll slide Joe Alt over to left tackle, and he'll be good to very good there, maybe even great. But then, of course, you downgrade at right tackle. And so that's it makes the Chiefs' path, since we're on a Chiefs podcast, makes the Chiefs' path a little bit easier.
Week 1, obviously, in Brazil. I mean, that's the first real test of the season comes against the Chargers.
Yeah. And so super, super bummed for him. I will say, it's a bummer for the team that they just paid him, but it's great for him that they just paid him. Because otherwise, then he would be going through an entirely different looking thing. So that's just, it's crazy. That's the biggest thing in preseason. Please, everyone get out of there healthy. I would rather they played no preseason games than someone get injured. It is interesting, some of the studies that they've done that show that like there's at least some correlation between not playing in the preseason and having a little more injury trouble early in the season, which makes sense because you don't ramp up. I don't think it's ever good to go from 0 to 100. Or I guess they're doing training camps. So let's say 30 to 100, that's just kind of an interesting thing. So those are the things I'm looking at in terms of like the game. I already told you this on Tuesday. I'm going to be camping. I've talked to the camp. Yeah. Well, no. Camping on Lake Superior. We're bringing a tent and, it's going to be great. Jazz.
Here's what I want to do, Seth. Here's what I want to do. Okay. Cause we should take our break before we do like our Chiefs players to watch kind of thing. And so I'm going to ask you questions until you throw to break. Today, you get to throw to the break whenever you see fit. Okay. Whose idea was the camping trip?
Jazz's.
How do you feel about it?
Aggressively neutral, but I love my wife, and we'll make good memories. And by aggressively neutral, I suppose I should say that my love and
adoration. You know what? I take it back. Let's take a break.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Success in real estate takes more than vision. It takes the right financial partner. When someone takes something rundown and turns it into something great, that's called a comeback story, like Brain Group. They take distressed properties here in KC, completely rework them, and then turn them into valuable real estate. But that kind of work needs the right bank behind it. Enter Emprise Bank. They're not about cookie-cutter loans. They saw Brain Group's vision, backed them, and now they're making big moves in Kansas City real estate. Talk about your partner in possible. Emprise doesn't do one-size-fits-all financing. They invest in potential and back growth. Visit emprisebank.com/KC to learn more. Emprise Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Folks, nothing beats hanging out with the boys on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And the simplest way that you all can get in on the action is to download the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It is crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part is, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and then use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Let's get into a couple of the specifics. A few of these players that we're excited to see take the field, many of them for the first time in a Chiefs uniform, and a few of them just getting back out there again, sometimes post-injury, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of reasons to clock in on Saturday. Let's start, though, with the left side of that offensive line. We've already acknowledged Josh Simmons might have 6 snaps. We have no idea. Well, we have some idea. The answer is not very many. We have some idea of what he may do out there in terms of the workload. Same goes for Kingsley Suamataia next to him. What are you looking for from those two guys? Obviously, Simmons making his NFL debut. Kingsley getting his first crack at taking that left guard job.
Man, if I had to pick, I'm more intrigued with Simmons just because that's just, yeah, I mean, that's the story of the offseason, right? Like, you can always like, well, no, the story of the offseason is whether or not Patrick Mahomes stays healthy. Yes, I understand that imaginary, annoying, pedantic person, which I understand that I only now created you as a figment of my imagination and then got annoyed with you. That doesn't seem fair. That's what I bring to the party. I'm going to make something up and then get annoyed. Anyway, I mean, Simmons is the story of the offseason because everything else, even unless Kingsley Suamataia is like an abject disaster at guard, which if he is, Jalen Moore is going to play and he'll probably be about league average at guard at worst. Right. So that's really, Simmons is the story of the offseason because if he plays fine, it changes everything for the offense in terms of their floor and their ceiling. If he plays well, it changes even more about the floor and the ceiling of the offense. So that's the biggest thing. And it's the traits translating stuff, right? We have seen his college film. The 2024 especially is unbelievable. 2023 was quite good. And seeing that growth year over year. We see how smooth he looks with movement. We've heard former offensive linemen, multiple guys that are just like that. The way that dude moves is special. Fair enough. And we can see it. We've heard that he's powerful. We can see it on film. Being able to see, okay, does that translate? With Suamataia, it's how much of last year's debacle at left tackle was him being unable to do the job. How much of it was that whole situation being poorly handled? The situation he was put in, you're not going to be on an island nearly as often at left guard as he was left at left tackle. It was insane how often they left him on an island. The inconsistency of his hands and feet, how much of that was due to being at tackle where there's more space and him not being, he's got really good athleticism, but his change of direction was sometimes a little bit labored for a guy that moves pretty well. So, how much of that is fixed by being at guard? And so what we're actually kind of doing in a weird way is the rookie thing for him, seeing as how his traits translate at guard. Week 18 against Denver, one of the only people to play passably well against some monsters. He had some good snaps against Allen, who is just a beast, tough guy to block. And Allen got him a couple. And what I loved, and we talked about this time, Allen got him the very first snap and got him bad. Very next snap, he tried the same thing, and Kingsley stonewalled him. And I was like, hey, that's what you like to see. So I want to say both. I would say Simmons. I mean, let's face it. Everyone here knows, unless Josh Simmons only plays 5 snaps, what I'm going to be writing about Saturday night and publishing either at like 1 a.m. on Saturday, if I can find somewhere to do it, or on Sunday morning, if I can find somewhere to do it. And I'll drive to a McDonald's at 5 a.m. You know what I mean?
I don't think anyone's asking you to do that. Is just one other thing I was going to mention. I don't think anyone's going to follow you to a McDonald's and make sure you get these broadcast snaps reviewed.
Yeah, but we're not coming back till Monday. And so, it's just like, You know
what? I might take the under. If I can get odds on the Keysor family camping trip coming back on Monday, I might take the under. I don't know.
There is zero chance that we come back before Jazz wants to come back.
You can't
Absolutely.
get an Uber? How far in the woods are you?
Oh, you said the Keysor family. I'm sorry. You didn't say me. There's always a loophole. No, it's going to be great.
Only one of you does film reviews I care about.
People who have never done it, The Lake Superior area, like by Duluth and stuff, North Shore, absolutely beautiful. So I'm excited. I haven't been. I've only seen pictures. So I'm stoked. It's going to be great. It's just an inconvenient timing because of the nature of what's happening. And I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I'm going to write about. Let's face it. That's why I'm hoping Andy will say, hey, offensive line, we've got 2 new guys here. We saw how we didn't do our guy any favors last year by giving him starter treatment and only giving him a total of like 25 snaps in the preseason against pros. Maybe we do 2 drives with our starters no matter what.
Right.
And then maybe 1 more drive at least with the starting group with the backup. I just want to see like 20 snaps just to figure out the trade stuff. And let's face it, I'll probably write about Kingsley Suamataia right after that, barring someone doing something crazy. Ashton Gelati had, 4 sacks and 8 pressures. I'll probably write about that if that happens.
Right. Which would be wonderful. I would also say, I think, kind of looking at both of those guys as a tandem, and obviously they're playing next to each other. There might be something there to see, like, oh, here are the 2 of them had a miscommunication that you want them to be able to fix by the regular season, or look at them really pass this off and look comfortable playing together, whatever it is.
Right.
The thing that I might add, I don't know, maybe this isn't true, but Josh Simmons can't prove a lot on Saturday. His ceiling is so high and the hype has gone so far now that if he goes out there, like, he gets beat on a couple of reps and it's not a great day, it's not a day you're excited to talk about, he's still the starting left tackle week 1, unless it is a disaster, right? And even, man, I don't know how much of a disaster it would take before they gave it back to Jalen Moore, because clearly this entire training camp has been Josh Simmons is left tackle, Jalen Moore is everything. I think Simmons probably has a more narrow range of outcomes. If Kingsley goes out there on Saturday and just looks out of sorts, I will wonder what the training camp reps would look like following that game. If Kingsley goes out there and looks like a natural and really looks comfortable in that spot, I'm going to be closer to being fully ready to kind of take that limiter off in terms of being excited about him as a guard, because on paper, the traits we've talked about, it makes a ton of sense. He also made a lot of sense as a developmental left tackle. Like, I don't want to pretend that we weren't also excited by the opportunity there.
Right.
But if he looks really good at guard on Saturday, if it looks like he's added some things to what he did in week 18 against Zach Allen, I could see us coming in on Tuesday a couple clicks higher on Kingsley than we were today. And I feel like we're already relatively optimistic about that working out.
Absolutely. And that's because Kingsley played well in preseason last year in a really curated situation. And so I think people are going to end up being more skeptical on Kingsley no matter what he does.
Sure.
Unless he's coming out and is like noticeably dominant or noticeably terrible. I think people are going to doubt whatever they see. And we rarely get, in this as in life, you rarely get answers that are quite that simple. And so I'm excited to see them work in tandem. I'm glad you brought that up because that's really important. One of the question marks that we had about kind of the plan they've got moving forward is like, so you're going to have a new left tackle and then a new left guard, and they're both going to be super young, huh? Remember that old pro you had there? And I get it. You got to make decisions.
They're so athletic, though.
They are very athletic.
That's not even sarcastic. That's my true inner monologue now, completely coping with the Joe Tooney trade.
Yes. No, I like that. And I mean, they should on paper be able to do some things in the run game that they haven't been able to do in years with those two at left guard, left tackle, which would be fun. So no, that's that left side of the O-line. It's the biggest story of camp. The other one arguably being, what happens with like the pass rush and then what happens with wide receiver. What happens with wide receiver matters a lot less if the line is good, because Xavier Worthy looks good. Travis Kelce looks good. And if the line is good, you can make that work with Worthy, Juju, and Kelce if the line is good. Like, I mean, in 2022, they made it work with MVS, Juju, and Kelce. That was 2022 Kelce and 2022 Juju. But still. So that's the receivers, though, are the next question up.
Literally. Nice. Good segue, Seth. It was next on the rundown. Pull that lever, chunk. Here we go to the receivers. There are going to be different guys that have impacts at different or on the field at different times in this game. You pick of the receivers you wrote about, because I've got I've got something for several of these guys that I'm at least interested, if not flatly excited for, and I am a little bit excited about a couple of them. What's the maybe even just chronologically, who do you think might get a little bit of a surprise few reps with that first team, however long they're out there? Who are you most excited to get your eyes on first among the receivers, and then what is it you're looking for?
I don't think we're going to see jack or crap from Worthy, because that's who I'd be most excited to see in terms of developmentally. But they might just if I were them, for kicks and giggles, the first call of preseason would be a pure go to Worthy and
4 verts. Let Tyquan Thornton over there, Worthy over here.
Just throw it as far as you can. The first 3 reps, I don't care. Just be like, no, guys, we're throwing downfield this year until we start getting good at it, or we lose 10 games in a row. But this is what we're doing.
You just described my college football 26 dynasty that has had its ups and downs.
Oh, yeah. I know how I want to play. It's
my offense.
4 verts is a classic. I personally, man, did I beat stick into the ground when I played Madden. Just over and over. Because, you got Travis Kelce. And so it's just over and over. It's like, oh, wow, they can't cover him. Oh, they still can't cover him. Oh, look at that. Wow. 31 catches for 420 yards. But man, I better turn injuries off.
the Kansas City Possums haven't been able to recruit a young Travis Kelce yet, so I'm looking. I'm all the 4-star tight end recruits with any interest whatsoever. Immediate scholarship.
That's the way to do it. You just got to find a guy that moves like that. Which, on a side note,
Travis Kelce.
Random advice to give to people: go back. The NFL posted like 1 hour of Travis Kelce highlights. Go back and watch that and remember. When we compare people to Travis Kelce, I think people forget what he looked like coming out of college. They see the route running savant he is now, and that's pretty incomparable as well. That dude was unbelievably explosive, like crazy explosive. So in terms of the receivers, it would be Worthy if I thought they were going to do jack or crap with him, but I don't think they will. So I think for me, because I've got pretty low expectations for Royals in year 1, as much as he's had a great camp, like that's been great. And it's continued when the Pats came on. That's wonderful to hear. But I think I want to see them try out Tyquan Thornton, our ex-receiver who gets 4 targets. Let's see what it looks like. Yep. He was a second-round pick in part because people were still on the anyone with under 4.3 speed needs to be drafted, like the Tyreek Hill phenomenon that took the league by storm for a bit. Now we're kind of back to like, hey, maybe let's look at some wide receiver traits here too.
Meanwhile, the Chiefs' best wide receiver draft pick these last few years might be the guy who's the fastest player in the NFL. Hey, we got Rashee Rice. That was awesome. We're gonna be the fast guy again now.
Yeah, and even Worthy was a very different type of prospect than Hill, which is why he was taking the first instead of the 5th in terms of like route running ability and stuff. But like with Thornton, I just want to see it in a game. And by it, I don't mean he needs 5 catches for 78 yards and a touchdown, something like that. I just want to see what it looks like. Does it look like he can take the top off a little bit? He hasn't been able to do it throughout his career. I acknowledge the issues in New England were numerous in nature. And so I get that. He was drafted in 2022. They have stunk out loud on offense in New England those 3 years.
Which is true. They have also had a desperate need for wide receivers throughout those 3 years. I'm kind of in on Tyquan Thornton, but that's just as true as well. Quarterbacks were bad, coaching was bad, team was bad. Yes. Wide receivers were bad. That would have been a good place to break through if you could have.
Right. And so do I think he can actually be the sacrificial X that MVS was and then Justin Houston was? No, I don't.
Justin Houston was great.
Yeah, Justin Houston. He could have been a tight end when he was young. That dude was explosive.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Justin Watson. Sorry, Justin Watson. Congratulations for getting paid. Good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sacrificial X receiver, can he do it? Well, he's got to be able to get off the line. Can he do it? We'll see. I'm skeptical because someone pointed out in the comments he was taking the 2nd round because New England drafted him like 2 rounds too early. Yes, you're not wrong.
The 4th round grade in the KCSN draft guide, which is crazy that the KCSN draft guide's been going on long enough for us to do this now for everybody.
That is
crazy.
That's wild. And they had some nice things to say about him. The talent's there. Yeah. He wasn't just a burner in college. He does some good things. But I want to see it. I want to see him get off the line. I want to see him run through some contact. He doesn't need to be a star. He needs to be able to get through contact and be fast down the field. If he can do that, he will have a role in the offense because that frees up a lot for Worthy, for Rice, for Brown, whenever, everyone's healthy. Great. That would be great news. So he's the guy I really want to see. And with Royals, because I'm assuming Rashee Rice, I'm thinking it's going to be like 6 games, maybe 8 games, something like that. That's kind of the. I feel like if the NFL were going to do just 2 to 4 games, I feel like they would have announced it the same day they announced Addison.
With the Addison one.
Yeah, I think they're still right now a lot of people are paying attention to this. They think we favor the Chiefs, but the Chiefs will appeal if it's too many. I bet we could get away with 8, and they probably won't say much. But maybe they'll try 6.
8 feels like a lot to me.
8 feels like a whole buttload. I'm hoping it's not that. But Royals is going to be important there because even though Worthy and Matt Harmon talked about this, who does great work with wide receiver stuff at Reception Perception, which is also really well named. That's
the
awesome.
best name. I was going to say the same thing. I don't want to interrupt Seth again. I've been in an interrupting mood. But it's such a good name.
It's such a good name, and he's got such a good process with it. And he pointed out that Worthy was able to be productive doing the Rashee Rice role last year, but it's not what he does best. Now, it's a testament to him that he figured it out, was able to be productive, but they're best off if someone else can do some of that Rashee Rice stuff. Well, that's Jalen Royal's college profile is pretty similar in terms of size and traits. So he's the next guy up that I would like to see. I really like what I've seen from camp, not just that he's had some highlights, but he looks pretty comfortable with contact. And that I always hammer that with receivers. That's in part starting to learn a lesson, what differentiated Tyreek Hill from Dexter McCluster and DeAnthony Thomas. And then getting that lesson just hammered home that I should have learned with Sky Moore. Yeah. And that's, you just learn these lessons over time. You keep thinking, well, if his releases are good enough, it'll be okay. You got to be able to run through contact to play receiver in the NFL, man, productively. So I'm excited to see that because Brown's been out for a while, dude.
Yep. I am also excited for both of them. And you mentioned it's a good call with Thornton of just get off the line of scrimmage. Get off the line of scrimmage, and you might be able to do this job. It's something that we never give receivers credit for when they're not getting the ball. It's not something I ever thought to give Justin Watson credit for, because it was just he's out there running his thing, and he's getting enough attention. Well, getting a little bit of attention means being enough of a threat to win a rep here and there, right?
Right.
So this is a bad reason to buy in, but I'm kind of buying the Tyquan Thornton thing because they really need somebody to do that.
Right.
You don't want Xavier Worthy to live that way, and he's the only guy thinking just a straight line speed, right? Being able to stretch the field.
Absolutely.
I don't know who else it is. I mean, Hollywood also, when healthy, has straight line speed, but you don't want to relegate him to that. And other NFL teams have figured out ways to throw the ball to their ex receivers. I should note, that's a possibility. Just not here very much.
Doesn't sound true.
Well, not around these parts as often. Chicken, egg, I don't know. But I really do want to see Thornton just get as many snaps as possible, to your exact point, to just do it against the defense. Do it against someone who's not in training camp. And if you're running those routes for Mahomes or Gardner Minshew or Bailey Zappi, whatever, I'd like to see any consistency in the reps from him, and I'm going to be ready to believe maybe more than I even should. And this is not just a shot at the aforementioned MVS, but Thornton's made some tough catches, and it seems like I haven't been to camp yet, and I haven't watched every rep. I've seen the highlights of him making tough catches. I also haven't seen him drop any easy ones. It just seems like if he could just be the most average speedy X receiver in the NFL, not most average starting X receiver speedster. If he could just be a click below that first iteration of MVS, a click above Justin Watson, if he ends up being in there, and look, Justin, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm doing it again. Justin Watson just got paid by a team to be a part of that offensive plan. He got more money than Tyquan Thornton did signing with the Chiefs. Okay. Yep. I don't know why I'm assuming it's an upgrade immediately. Maybe it's the Mahomes of it all, but it just really seems like it fits. And we'll hopefully talk about him a bunch more with Royals. It's so strange that the Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy ramp up periods. Obviously, Worthy ended up having Hollywood hurt early and then Rice hurt very early after that. Hollywood hurt, first play of the preseason. Stay healthy, everybody. The Rashee Rice ramp-up period was so evident down the stretch that you could see it all coming together, and that was a thrill. For Worthy, you saw him get used more early on, but it didn't start to really click into place until the back half of the year. I still have a real hesitance to assume that Jalen Royals is going to be able to be a 6-week stopgap, even if you say, hey, man, he's, 55% of Rashee Rice. That's the best you're going to get in that spot. I don't know that the Chiefs would trust him in that position just because this offense has so many points of gravity. It has so much to know and understand on so many levels. So I'll be curious to see, and this is going to be hard to judge in real time. You're going to be able to judge where he lines up on the broadcast view, I guess. I want to know where they put Jalen Royals. Is it going to be just doing a bunch of Rashee Rice stuff because it seems like maybe they're just trying to get that in front of his eyes in an NFL game as much as possible because he's going to have to? Are they moving him around because they want these young receivers to learn every wide receiver spot? I don't know. We'll find out on Saturday, but honestly, I mean, especially later in the game, if Royals or Thornton are on the field later on, that's going to be where my eyes go pretty early on in the alignment, I think.
Absolutely, and it's important to keep in mind the how, not just the what. Right. If Royals shows the ability to, he did some good things after the catch in college. He's got that same, he does not have good long speed, at least not overall, in my opinion. I mean, we'll see. You never know. You never know what guys look like at the pro level. You just don't. I tell people this all the time. Bolton looks the same speed in the NFL as he looks in college. Yeah. That's weird because he should look slower because everyone around him is faster. That's weird. And so good on him. That's part of what makes him a better pro than I thought he'd be. Good for him. Some guys, they look the same speed that they looked in college. It's a weird thing. I don't know how to ever figure. It's like some guys look just as strong as they looked in college. And you're like, but then why didn't you just dominate in college? What? And it just doesn't make sense. That's the human condition, I guess. So I want to see the maybe he can do some of the yak stuff. Like you said, maybe he can do 50% of what Rice is doing. That seems really unlikely. I think you're really, really correct to be skeptical. Feels more likely to me that they would do some combination of, let's say, Brown gets healthy. They would probably do some stuff. Brown's not really a yak guy, but they'd probably have Juju and Worthy kind of take turns doing Rashee Rice-y type stuff. But the reality is, unless something's changed drastically, and I've heard a lot of good things about Worthy coming out of camp, unless something's changed drastically, the Chiefs think Rashee is their guy. He is their number one dude. Now we'll see how it goes. They're not going to have all the same responsibilities for anyone that they have take his place.
I'll add one more name. I think there's a chance Rashee Rice suspended the first act of the season. I think there's a chance that Nico Remigio is getting more snaps than Jalen Royals. Right, and I'm not offended by that. I'm not furious about that. He's just been around for a little bit, and there's a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of trust with him in the offense, I think. So he might be he might be up before Royals, and that's not a death knell for Jalen Royals' NFL career.
Right. Well, and it's also worth noting that he was another one of the only people that didn't look completely hopelessly out of depth in Week 18 against a really good Broncos defense. Nico Remigio, he was one of the only guys that looked like, okay, I think he belongs on the field. Right. That's not bad. And that's what you need, right? If Rice is out, you need someone who belongs on the field. And Remigio's skill set for returning kicks, maybe some of those quick screens and some of that stuff, I wouldn't hate it. I'd like to see him. Every time I've watched him play, in the preseason, as well as the Week 18 and just a few other things, he gets the ball. I'm like, I mean, maybe.
That's so right. That's so perfect. It's not like, well, you got to get him the ball 10 times, but it's also not like, well, that guy can't have the ball, which I would never, ever, ever slander any of our dual sport athletes and professional rugby superstars. But there are times when you're like, oh, that guy got the ball and the burst just isn't there. Burst just isn't there for at the NFL level, right? And then sometimes, Tyreek Hill gets the ball in the preseason. You're like, well, that man is going to make a lot of money in playing this sport for a long time.
Yeah.
I do think this part of the preseason is fun because I do want to I want to find out what my opinion is on Nico and Royals and all these guys.
No, absolutely.
You're holding up a finger to wag at me, and I thought you had something else you wanted to say.
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you demonstrably.
It was a green finger point. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Well, then that's my green finger.
I did say, I think the wide receivers will be relatively interesting all the way through the game. This is maybe I'd like you to listen to the Chiefs radio network coverage of this game that I'll be on the bookends of. Maybe now I'm a company man and I can't have you turning off the game in the fourth quarter, but I actually think, Seth, dead serious, whoever's getting carries in this game will be interesting from the running back position. All the way down the depth chart, there are interesting things at the running back position. You've mentioned several in the story. I'm going to gloss over just a bunch here and make my case. You can tell me what you're really interested in. I read your story. I know where it starts. Isaiah Pacheco was not the reason the Chiefs offense wasn't explosive last year, and people forget that. That's my short version, is that he was barely ever Isaiah Pacheco last year. He was Isaiah Pacheco at the very beginning of the season, then he was absent, and then he was 75% of Isaiah Pacheco, or wherever you want to put it. How does he look? Does he look fresh and like he's running violently? Fantastic. Get him out of the game, and I'll see you in Brazil. But I want to see that first. Kareem Hunt, similar deal. The offseason to deal with his 400 touches that he got in that 3-week period early in the year. And now he also had a training camp in St. Joe instead of being pulled off the couch last year to join the team. Obviously, Brashard Smith, obviously. We already mentioned Dexter McCluster and D'Anthony Thomas in today's show. Like I just couldn't be more of a sucker for what Brashard Smith is bringing on paper. Right. There are specifics that we can talk about with him. And Elijah Mitchell, I don't know if he's kind of in odd man out territory, if he's in don't sweat it till the regular season comes around. We just got to keep you healthy. And I want to know what his explosiveness level is. And then obviously I think Carson Steele is probably a practice squad warrior when it's all said and done. Elijah Young as an undrafted running back that they seem to like a little bit. They're like, this is when you find those guys. And we are currently talking about the first and probably third running backs on this team being 7th round picks. So, and actually Mitchell was a late round pick as well. And Steele was undrafted. So if Elijah Young shows me something, I'm going to be ready to say his name on Tuesday as well. But really, I think that whole backfield is going to have some questions to answer on Saturday.
Absolutely. You're 1,000,000% right with Pacheco. Do you look Isaiah Pacheco prior to his injury in 2024 had slightly above average explosion, below average vision, but he had slightly above average explosion. So he'd rip off a 10 to 15 to 20 yard gain once a game. There's tremendous value in that. Does he have that again? And if he doesn't, that'll be good to know because that means they got to figure something out. With Kareem Hunt, he's saying he's off candy and all that stuff. The man is turning 30. He's a running back. He doesn't have nearly the workload that most running backs his age have. I mean, let's see. Does he still look like he does not have NFL average burst? That's my guess. If so, okay, great. You're our short yardage guy, which low key, he was a huge asset last year in short yardage situations. You're a short yardage guy, maybe our third down back, because we trust you in pass protection and we know you'll catch the ball. Great. How do either of them look burst-wise? And then how do Mitchell and Smith look? How does Young look? Is there anyone there who can add some genuine pop to the offense? I know everyone calls Pacheco pop, but I mean, can add a 120-yard gain a game. Smith is the most obvious guy. But, Mitchell, before all the injuries over the last few years, was an explosive player. Does he look explosive? Does he look good? If that's the case, you got some hard questions to answer. Part of it, and this is the frustrating thing I think for me about preseason, especially with running backs, is it all depends on what the backup and third string offensive line looks like against the Cardinals backup and third string defensive line. Because sometimes that's such a mismatch that you can't tell one way or the other, right? Because sometimes you just end up where you're just blowing them off the ball. It's usually not that because
that was week 18 last year, kind of.
Yeah. Depth is usually better on the defensive side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball. So offensive linemen often get overwhelmed in these games. We'll see what happens. But either way, it doesn't tell you much about the running back. Except with like Mitchell, you healthy now? You look explosive? Cool. With Smith, I want to see him run a couple plays where the hole's there, but it's not like this gaping, massive hole for him to run through. That would be nice to see. Are you able to follow your blocks at the pro level when things are a little faster? Those are all interesting. I think it's going to be Pacheco and Hunt unless they look bad.
Yeah.
I have feelings about that, but no one asked me, so.
I'd love to ask you, but we're getting close to the end of the show. I'm going to ask you a yes or no question. You can expand if you want. I'm genuinely curious for a very silly question. You can't. I don't think you can bet on this anywhere, and man, you shouldn't. Do you think Rashard Smith gets one pass protection rep?
Yes, I think he gets one. I don't think it's.
But
with
it's
Mahomes.
like it is in front of Bailey Zappi. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. 100%. It is
Yeah.
not with Mahomes or Minshew.
No,
There's
exactly
no
right
way they are remotely trying that. And I think it's going to be ugly. If it's not, hey, good on him.
If he could, however this happens, if he could become a respectable pass protector at all, the hype train will be moving as fast as he does, because that would be massive. That's how Carson Steele got to the roster last year, and obviously, like, that didn't work out tremendously throughout the course of the season. But that was the takeaway, I think, from the third preseason game, was like, hey, Carson Steele was back there laying down some blocks, and if he's got to do that in front of Mahomes, he can't. So that's your undrafted late round pick.
If you're willing to pass protect and play on special teams, you'll make an NFL roster with like a certain amount of talent. Like, I'm very willing to pass protect.
Willing, parentheses, and able. Yeah.
The and able thing's important. So that's the big thing with Smith. And I would just tell people, with Smith, we see these routes he's running in practice. We see the speed. He'd be fast. He'd be a pretty fast wide receiver. He'd be an above average speed guy at wide receiver. Running back, he's upper percentile, right? But you can't be the third down back if you can't pass protect. You just can't. He's more likely, I think, to see the field on first and second down with 12 and 21 personnel sets, where they're trying deliberately to get them heavy, and then you go empty, which, by the way, you like your first two tight ends. You might be a little light at wide receiver. I would love to see some 12 personnel with Rashard Smith, and they go empty, and then Mahomes just picks out who's the linebacker covering. They covering Kelsey, Gray, or Smith, and I'm going that guy. Like, I would love to see that, but you're not going to be a third down back until you show you can pass protect.
And unfortunately, we're definitely not going to see that any sooner than week 1 in Brazil, and maybe not even nearly that early. But I'm with you. That would be I like that. I like that personnel vision quite a bit. I also like the vision of us coming back on Tuesday with some football to talk about, which is certainly the plan. You'll have your coverage across the way here on KCSN. We're going to be able to review some snaps. Seth's going to try to not get any ticks or anything out in the woods, and I think we'll all be better for it on Tuesday. In the meantime, Seth, you do know what Nate's absence means. It means you got to take us out of here.
I wasn't super excited about the idea of camping when it first came to me, or was brought to me. But, now I've just realized, after the week that I've had, that there is an upside to camping. And that upside is there's a chance that I will be, traipsing along beautiful Lake Superior, enjoying the scenery. And, sometimes I feel this way doing what I do. And, you need a break. You need to get away from nature, especially when you've had a tough week. And so I can just hope that I will get to have some peace and tranquility, looking at some beautiful waterfalls, going on a beautiful hike. And then I can just really hope that as I'm looking at that lake, one of the bears mauls me and brings me sweet relief from this.
Did you say Drew Tranquility? Is that what you said?